Welcome to Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk, 1180 KERN for the best in Saturday talk radio at 1 o'clock and on 1230 KGEO at 10 o'clock on Saturday, and for the best in Wednesday talk radio on 1410 KERI, the Christian station. We're now on 1000 KKIM in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and also on the Internet on knookmedium.com, serving Richmond, Oakland, and the San Francisco Bay Area, which is really appropriate today. Your host is Clay Koerner, and I'm Marty Pay, and our producer is Greg Held. Clay, before we introduce our guests, I want to talk a little bit about last week and what's going on in 2 weeks for us. Last week we had Holocaust survivor Sam Young on.
Interesting show.
Yeah, great show. And two things I wanted to mention. You know, of the 1,200 Jewish families in his town, his was the only one that survived.
Right.
Yeah.
They executed all the rest of them.
Yeah. And he was talking a little bit about that doctor that sheltered him for a year. Sam probably wouldn't like me admitting this on the air, but Sam to this day still helps support that family. So
Sam's an interesting individual.
Yeah, a tribute to the guy. I mean, he's a great man, Well, next week we're going to have a best of, but the following week we're going to have a very, very special show. We're going to have Clint Hill, who just wrote a book. Clint Hill, those of you that remember the Kennedy assassination, was the Secret Service agent who jumped on the back of the car after Kennedy was assassinated and then sheltered Mrs. Kennedy and the president from any further bullets. So we're going to have him on the air, and then we're also going to have Peter Kreeft, famous author who wrote a book called Between Heaven and Hell. Some of you may know that JFK, C.S. Lewis, and Alexis Huxley all died on the same day. This book, obviously, is a mythical book of the three of them meeting in the clouds after they're all passed away that day and talking about what happens next.
How appropriate, in the clouds in 2013.
Yes.
Who's our guest today?
Our guest today is an old friend of the program, somebody we love having on because it's Clay's favorite subject. Sally Pipes, the president of the Pacific Research Institute and a very, very famous author who wrote a great book called The Truth About Obamacare. She is definitely one of the foremost experts on Obamacare. Sally, welcome back to Taking Care of Business.
Well, thank you both for having me on.
Well, Sally wrote 2 books, by the way, about Obamacare.
That's right. What's the second book?
Actually, now it's 4.
Wow.
So I started with The Truth About Obamacare, and then we did the Pipes Plan, and then I did The Cure for Obamacare, which was an encounter broadside that came out this summer, and before that, the Top 10 Myths of American Healthcare. So it's been a long couple of years. I don't know. Can we survive a few more years dealing with this disaster?
Oh, my God. You know, I don't think so, Sally. You know, we went to, Clay and I independently went to the Obamacare meeting, the covered California meeting here in California.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was shocked because the gentleman who ran the meeting started out by saying that they have lost tens of thousands of applications. I almost fell off the chair when I heard that. With checks, you know, the stuff he was saying in the first couple of minutes, if it were in you know, an insurance company doing it, they would have seized the company, or the insurance commissioner would be in their office that morning.
Well, I mean, when you think about, all the glitches with healthcare.gov, if that were Google, I mean, Sergey Brin and Larry Page, they would be fired from their job. But instead, Mrs. Sebelius continues on her merry way.
Has anybody in the Obama administration ever not got a promotion for doing something wrong?
Well, and of course, Mrs. Jarrett, Valerie Jarrett, has so much control over the president. I mean, I thought it was really interesting when a couple of weeks ago the president said, he hadn't even met with HHS Secretary Sebelius on the whole, all of the problems. I mean, I think it just shows how uninvolved he's been with, the implementation of the largest entitlement program in our history since the Great Society under Lyndon Johnson.
I'm not sure when he says something anymore what I can believe.
Well, and I think finally, that the key thing is that the American public is waking up to this. When he made that statement over and over again, if you like your health plan, you can keep it. And people believed him. But now with the cancellation of policies, with people with employer-based coverage finding out, what's going to happen to the copay they have to pay, their deductible, what might happen in the future, all of these things are really, I think, causing an awakening among the American people. And there's going to be a backlash because these people believe the president. He's going to bring about universal coverage, and he's going to bring the cost curve down. And now they're realizing this is not going to happen, and they're going to be very upset about it.
Sally, you mentioned group plans. What happens next year when all of a sudden the law applies to the group plans? I'm surprised they did this, during an election year, because it's going to come back to bite them in the you-know-where.
Well, of course, there's been a delay from October 15th to November 15th with some of the things to do with the new plans, and of course that is so that the president and his crew can survive the 2014 election. So they're doing that. But I mean, even though they delayed the employer mandate for a year from January 1st, 2014 to January 1, 2015, a lot of companies have been acting already, and you've seen it with, UPS, with Trader Joe's, with Home Depot, all of these things, moving people to part-time, working fewer than 30 hours a week, keeping your employment levels down, not creating jobs. Corporations, have to stay in business, and they're acting already, even though that employer mandate has been delayed a year. And so I think, particularly if you were a spouse working at of someone working at UPS, United Parcel Service, 15,000 of those spouses, if they have alternative options for coverage with their own employer, they're being kicked off. So, people, it's just astounding, what the president told the American people and what is unraveling.
It's amazing. We're having a conversation with Sally Pipes, president of the Pacific Research Institute.
Sally, one of the things that I think employers need to be extremely careful with is how they reduce hours to bring people below the 30 hours, because there's several ways that they can be sued, and the Obama administration will definitely go after them.
Oh, I know. We're seeing so much of this kind of thing, with the IRS investigations. I mean, I think the administration and the president in particular are really worried about people who are against them. And, we're just, people who've had audits, people who, run nonprofit organizations. I mean, it's really interesting who's being investigated. And I think, there's a real machine that's being developed that is going on. And plus we're seeing, the president is not giving up on this whole idea of, spending a lot of money to do ads, involving Enroll, Organized for Action, Enroll America, movie stars, sports teams, because he knows that the young invincibles, none of us is a young invincible anymore, of course, but, if we were between 18 and 31, it's highly unlikely that we would be signing up for health care and health insurance on the exchanges because of the cost of the premium and the deductibles. They're going to pay the individual mandate penalty starting January 1st, 2014, of $95 or 1% of income, whichever is greater. And so he has to spend all this money to try and get people to enroll. But even with the money they've spent already, it isn't happening. Young people, realize this is not a wise decision for them to purchase expensive insurance when they believe nothing will happen to them. They're invincible. What they want is an insurance plan that covers catastrophic events.
Well, young people may be very liberal in today's environment, but they're not stupid. And I think having them...
When it comes to their pocketbook, no.
No, that's what I'm talking about. They're not stupid when it comes to what they have to pay and what they're going to get for what they're paying, especially with these new, like a bronze medical plan that's got 3 visits at $60 and a $5,000 deductible.
Right, and, when you see, when people sort of look a bit further, I don't think anyone, has really been focusing on this, but when they think they enroll for a plan, because of the problems with the back end and the 834 forms, they don't even know whether they have coverage or not. And some people are going to turn up at doctors' offices and hospitals starting next year. Well, I enrolled. Well, you don't have coverage. Well, I thought I did. And so the government, the administration is putting pressure on insurers to, extend, retroactively coverage. But I think the big issue will be, when people find out if they do have coverage, well, maybe their doctors aren't included in the plan that they signed up for. Maybe the hospitals that they've been using aren't part of that network, and that's going to be huge. We know in California, the Blue Shield Silver plan, it only covers 53% of the doctors in a comparable individual plan under Blue Shield, in the past, and 78% of the hospitals. So if you lived in Los Angeles and were used to going to Cedars-Sinai or UCLA Medical Center, unless you have Anthem Blue Cross, and not even, and Cedars isn't taking any coverage. People are going to be in for a rude awakening.
Unless you're outside the exchange.
Oh, yes. I'm talking about people who are
in the exchange.
In the exchange, whether they're individuals. And, of course, there are a lot of problems with, the shop exchange issues, and there's been delays there, and people have to sign up, on healthcare.gov paper,
well, let's come back to that.
Exchange.
Let's come back to that in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, and actually, the two of you just raised a couple of questions that I have after the break. So we'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio News Talk 1180.